If you want a property, who are you going to call?
Not Ghostbusters.
Not this time.
Moving forward with the Dekker Team. Moving forward together with the Dekker Team.
So we're excited to welcome you to another episode of Life's Inside Track. I'm Yetta Dekker, and today I'm with Kelly Wilson of the Wilson team. And the great news is today we're still going to share techniques, thoughts, tips, and tools that we all deserve. You, I, everyone. So we get to turn our house into home and where our families thrive and we live the best life possible. We're going to consider today, even though you may be able to qualify for a conventional mortgage on a house. And I think most of us have started realizing that going to a mortgage specialist might be the wisest choice, even with a conventional house. But what if you want to buy land or you want to build a new home, whether one that you're building yourself or one that you are having constructed out with a contractor or with a big builder? Like, how are you going to finance that? So fortunately, pretty excited that today I get to sit with Kelly Wilson, who is the person I would call. If I was getting a mortgage of any kind on anything, I'm calling you, my friend.
Thank you.
Yes. So, and I do. So
I know you do.
That's fair, right?
Absolutely.
So we'll share some of those stories.
Yeah, we have some stories.
We have stories. But first, I just want you to kind of open up the conversation. If somebody's buying land, I often get phone calls when I have vacant lots for sale, whether it's something that has a cabin on it or whether it's something that is purely vacant land. It may already have a garage on it. I've sold a few of those, but I can't live in it.
No.
How is that different to finance that than a principal residence? What do I have to do? What do I have to know, Kelly?
So it's a really good question. We get it a lot because people have great dreams and ideas that they could build, the home that they want, from scratch. But land is not as easy to finance in terms of what the banks are looking for to be able to put security on. So when you're looking at land, most banks don't actually want to provide financing
At all.
So you do have to have some capital behind you. You can look at maybe going to even your local branch to do a note loan, but mortgages are not going to be
Now I'm going to stop you for a moment.
Mm-hmm.
I love that. Don't go to your bank. Don't go to your mortgage specialist. You can maybe get private lending.
Yeah,
but even that is going to be really expensive because you can't live in land.
No, and even if you're purchasing land, you're going to have a substantial amount down, right? The bank is probably not going to lend more than 50, 60, 70%. So a lot of people are saying, okay, well, if I've got equity in my own home currently, maybe I can look at putting a line of credit on that and maybe partial savings to be able to cover that and hold it for long term. If you are looking to buy land and build right away, then there's definitely opportunity to get what's called a construction mortgage. Okay. So you could look at wrapping the build in with the land on the purchase.
Okay.
But there has to be work done because before you close on the land, if you want to get a mortgage for 50 or 75% of it, the bank wants to know that you've got the plans in place. So your drawings, all of your services, your general contractor has to be. So we need to know what that looks like after the build. What's the appraised value after the build? And what's it going to cost to get to each stage of that construction? But just to go out and buy land and hold it is going to be extremely difficult to get an actual mortgage on it. And
right. Basically, the answer is no.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so can you explain exactly what a note loan is?
So
I'm sure people are asking. You might be asking, like, what is it? Sounds good. What is it?
It is similar to a mortgage. I mean, it's just similar to an actual loan that you would go out and get. So we don't do note loans through our channel, unfortunately. That is done on a branch level. And the other thing with land is that it's very difficult to know what the purpose of that land is for the banks. So whether you can actually do anything with it, what is the agricultural on it? So there's just a lot of work that has to go into when you're purchasing land and what the actual purpose can be later on. So when you're buying it, you want to do all that. That's what your job is, to do all that due diligence prior to closing to make sure that the use of the property can actually be for what it's servicing. And even if there's a cabin, because we get that a lot where people want to buy a cabin and I want to live in 100 acres and have a cabin. We don't use the cabin as any form of security.
Right,
So
because it isn't.
It really isn't.
It's kind of a shed.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, whether we call it an A-frame, whether we call it a bunkie, whether we say it's overlooking the lake, it doesn't really matter. It's basically a shed.
Yeah, and we had a client call last week, and they said we want to buy something and rent it out. You know, have that cabin where people can go away and they can be off the grid, as you like to say. And you know, could I get a mortgage on it, and could I rent it out? And it needs to have services. It needs to be able to provide actual shelter for somebody. So if you just want to get away in the summer and have a little cabin to go to, there's not going to be a lot of value placed on that property.
How about no value?
No
on
value.
that?
Let's go with no value.
Let's go with no value.
Yeah.
If you're thinking, I do want more information about building or about land, and we're going to talk a little bit more about building in a minute, but if you want to stay connected around your options, just send us an email. Here's the subject line. It's so big. Together. That's all you have to say is together in the subject line, and you're going to send it to together@dekkerteam.com. And what it's going to allow us to do is stay connected with you, giving you great insight as you go, and give you a forum to ask us questions whenever you want, even from one of our guests like Kelly. And so, Kelly, as we think about the new construction, we kind of touched on it for a moment. What are those things you have to think about if you're going to do new construction, whether it be a construction like a custom build, or the other one I think that so many people are doing, because that's more of a niche market, the custom build, right? The more traditional is from a big builder. Going to one of the builders, and you've got an 18-month or a 24-month close, and you got to figure out about your financing. Talk to me about that. Talk to us about that.
So why people like to, go to a builder in order to purchase is because they can generally do it with less money out of their pocket. So a builder might only require maybe 5, 10, 15% deposit, where a custom build, you're going to need a lot more capital up front to get that build complete. The thing to remember, though, with going to a builder is, number one, you do have to put out a deposit, and there may be carrying costs and interest costs on that for the duration of the time. And there's a lot of things that can change within that time frame when you're waiting for a property. So, for example, if your job changes, if you go from your permanent position to a contract position or self-employed position, that could affect your ability to purchase in 1 to 2 years. If anything changes with your health, if things change with the government, the rules change. And we've seen that a few times where the government changes the way you qualify. For example, right now, stress tests are much higher than they were a year ago. So if a client hasn't gotten that approval done ahead of time, or they're waiting or something changes, that stress test is now 2 to 3%, sometimes 4% higher than what they were qualifying when the mortgage rates were 2%. And now they're acting as if they're qualifying at 7%. The other thing that can change too is values, right? So when you're at the peak of the market and the builders are asking top price, and now you're waiting 18 months, and now the housing market is balanced, the appraisals may not come in at what you paid. So there's a lot of things that you need to consider, and making sure all of those ducks are in order when you go to make that purchase, so that when any of those things happen, you're still in a position to qualify to close on that property, even if it comes in short.
Right. So really, I think what Kelly is saying is you want to make sure you have a fair bit of extra cash in the background before you do it. And I mean, my question for you is, who are you going to call if you're thinking about doing any of this stuff? And I know the answer you ought to be giving, and that is Kelly. And so we're excited that we've been able to come alongside you, moving forward together in wealth, wisdom, and work.
Moving forward with the Dekker Team. Moving forward together.